Sung Jinwoo tries to feed Jinho a healing potion, but his health is too low for it to be effective. He asks the other two hunters if either of them are healers, and neither of them respond. He repeats himself again, except this time he's not asking. He tells them to heal Jinho. The healer says, we don't speak Korean. Dong-soo interjects, saying he's asking you to heal the kid. Smiling, he says, is this our first time meeting, Sung Jinwoo? Jinwoo ignores Dong-soo and says, I'll ask one more time. Heal him. The healer says, you'll have to convince my boss first. Before he could finish his sentence, Sung Jinwoo grabbed his face with the palm of his hand, savagely slammed his head against the wall. Looks to the other hunter and says, are you a healer too? And the hunter responds, hey, Mr. Huang didn't mention anything about Sung Jinwoo being involved in this. Jinwoo says, I asked if you can use healing magic. And bro says, no, I'm not. Before he could finish his sentence, Sung Jinwoo used telepathy to slam him through the pavement. Hwang Dong-soo says, I knew it. You're the one who killed my brother, Hwang Dong-sook, aren't you? Still struggling to breathe, Jinho says, sir, be careful. He's Dong-sook's brother. Jinwoo says, don't say another word. Dong-soo says, answer me, Sung Jinwoo. Did you kill my brother and his squad? Jinwoo slowly walks up to him until they're standing face to face. He says, go ask him yourself. Dong-soo clenches his jaw and you can see mana leaking out of him from anger. He suddenly decides to rush Sung Jinwoo. Of course, Jinwoo is too quick and he dodges his first punch. Turns the favor with the most casual gut punch I've ever seen, with enough force to knock Dong-soo through a wall into the next room. After his motion stops, Dong-soo gathers himself, but he immediately sees something out the corner of his eye. Sung Jinwoo to the left of him, candidly staring him down. First the nerve to muster another attack, but Sung Jinwoo jumps him and slams him on the ground face in hand. He slowly picks him up by the face and lifts him in the air. Repeatedly slams him back down. This goes on for a while. From the outside of the facility, you just hear loud booms with the ground shaking. At this point, Sung Jinwoo might have blacked out. Suddenly, Thomas Andre comes crashing through the ceiling saying, that's enough. Specifically told him not to mess with you. Is Hwang Dong-soo still alive? And casually he replies, for now. And Thomas Andre says, oh, you seem pretty responsive. Then I guess we can quickly talk this out. Let him go. And if you do, I'll pretend this never happened. If I refuse, Jinwoo says, my request will no longer be a request, but an order. Fine by me, he replies as he tosses Dong-soo to the side. Flying through the air, Dong-soo thinks to himself, yes, this is exactly what I wanted. Thomas has no choice but to intervene. Hurry up and kill Sung Jinwoo for me. Tear his ass to shreds. You know who I am? Thomas Andre says, now within arm's reach of Sung Jinwoo. Replies, honestly, it doesn't matter who you are. Thomas thinks to himself, he knows who I am, yet he's still choosing to fight me? Then get a flashback explaining Thomas Andre's upbringing. Thomas Andre grew up in a poor immigrant family, surrounded by enemies and with nothing to his name, but the universe bestowed upon him an extraordinary gift. Overwhelming force, the power to crush all others. Through an endless series of fights, Thomas repeatedly proved his natural talent, and he saw firsthand how powers impacted those who opposed him. Strength, authority, wealth, violence. By using the many kinds of power in this world, he reigned like a king. And when a completely different form of power emerged, he seized the opportunity to become a true king. He destroyed those who blocked his path, and he brought those who looked down on him to their knees. Violence was his justice. Experience taught him how to handle people who refused to obey him. Thomas makes the first move and says, we'll blame this on your ignorance. The point of view switches to the rest of the Scavengers Guild who just made it on the scene. Hurry, someone said, we have to get to Thomas. Suddenly they hear multiple boom sounds and the ground starts shaking. Something is knocked back with enough force to move all the cars behind it. The dust settles, we see it was Thomas Andre. Guildmates move in to help him out, but he tells them to back away with the wave of a hand. He begins walking back towards the source of whatever knocked him away, and the rest of his guildmates begin running the opposite way because they know what time it is. The point of view switches to Sung Jinwoo, who just summoned Igris and Kaisel. He tells them to take Jinho to the nearest hospital and make sure he gets treated no matter what. Igris props Jinho on his shoulders and flies off on Kaisel into the night. Now the battle really begins. We're shown a face-off between Thomas Andre and his top-rank hunters, and Sung Jinwoo and his shadow army. While smiling a devilish grin, Thomas says, there we go, now we're talking. Anything less would have been worth my time. I don't give a damn about Hwang Dong-soo anymore. There's only one way to restore my pride. I'm gonna kill that arrogant bastard. Andre says, it's not too late to admit your mistakes and surrender. I'll spare your life. Jinwoo responds with the raise of a single finger. Charging up his mana, Thomas Andre says, so that's how it's gonna be, huh? You'll regret missing your last chance. He says this, every single muscle in his body begins to bulge as if they're being pumped by pure mana. The Scavenger Guild follows their commander's lead and poise themselves for battle. Jinwoo's shadow army readies themselves as well. So Jinwoo ushers the command, go. And Thomas Andre says, here they come. Almost immediately, the abandoned warehouse turned into a battlefield as all-out war ensued. The Scavenger Guild is very medieval in their attack strategy. They sent their tanks to the front and had them all raise a shield, just kind of like old school knights. Put up a wall of mana to lessen the force from the impact of what looked like it was going to be an endless Shadow Army's attack. The two forces met in the middle with a clash of epic proportions. Showing Thomas Andre in the middle of the fray battling it out with Iron and a bunch of other shadows. Out the corner of his eye he sees Tusk preparing some kind of magical attack. He launches himself in his direction, punches through his shield and through his skull. Looking at the shadows he just defeated, he says, "Those guys don't stand a chance against me." We see him launch himself in the air, smash straight through the roof of the factory. He lands with a bang and immediately surveys his surroundings looking for Sung Jinwoo. He sees most of his soldiers who were inside being defeated by the shadow. He looks around until he suddenly locks eyes with Sung Jinwoo. He immediately dashes in his direction. Iron anticipates his movements and jumps in his path to block Sung Jinwoo. Thomas yells, "Get out of my way," and slashes Iron in his midsection. He looks back at where Sung Jinwoo was. He vanished. Suddenly he feels his presence directly behind him. Sung Jinwoo attempts to stab him in the ribs with his blades, but the blades weren't sharp enough to penetrate Thomas's exterior. This leaves Sung Jinwoo wide open as Thomas returns the favor with a massive punch to the side. Jinwoo braces for impact, but he still ends up getting pushed across the room. Thomas Andre says, "Are national level hunters a joke to you?" Raises his hand, activating telekinesis to pull Sung Jinwoo back to him. Telekinesis, Sung Jinwoo thinks to himself. Thomas says, "Feel the difference in our strength and wallow in despair." While being pulled in towards Thomas, Sung Jinwoo raises his hand and activates Ruler's authority. He uses an amount of force that feels like gravity times 10. Thomas says, "What the hell is this? Is he planning on crushing me into the ground? It almost feels like I'm frozen in place." I'm pulling him towards me, but he's still choosing to attack? How dare he? Jinwoo manages to land a massive punch to the jaw. Sends Thomas Andre hurling across the room. And Thomas Andre notices for the first time in a long time, he's bleeding. Able to stop the impact of the punch, but before he can recover, Sung Jinwoo follows up with another attack. He says, "What did you just say now? Feel the difference in our strength and wallow in despair?" Too fast for the eye to see, he hits him with a barrage attacks from all angles. Beginning to shimmer with golden mana, Thomas says, "Alright, I'll stop underestimating you." He yells, "Reinforcement." The point of view switches to Alan White, who's on his way to the scene of the battle. "Mr. White, I think it's about time you explained to me what's going on." And he says, "There's no time to give you a rundown of every single..." Cuts him off and says, "What happened? You're not a hunter, so you may not feel anything. But if things escalate any further, all our lives will be at risk." The point of view switches back to the battle and we see Thomas Andre's final form. At that moment, Sung Jinwoo thought to himself, there are 4 humans who have borrowed the power of rulers. Perhaps they were among the 4 survivors of the Kamish raid, meaning they might be 4 of the national level hunters, Thomas Andre being one of them. Sung Jinwoo rushes in to make the first attack of round 2. In response, Thomas slams his arms on the ground and creates this massive shockwave, nearly destroys everything in sight. Jinwoo jumps out the way to avoid impact. Thomas Andre raises his hand and says, "Capture." Point of view switches to his guildmates who are running to get away from where Thomas is at. Jinwoo's shadows are a little bit confused, kind of just watching what's going on. Suddenly, they start getting pulled into the gravitational force swirling around Thomas. Jinwoo grabs onto a nearby wall. He says, "What incredible force, it's like a black hole. I would have been totally sucked in if it wasn't for Commander's authority." Suddenly, the black hole above Thomas stops pulling and begins pushing. It creates this massive explosion that totally destroys the factory. Jinwoo manages to escape the impact and lands on what's left of the nearby building. For a brief second, him and Thomas stare each other down. Thomas says, "Next time, I won't miss." Between Thomas Andre and Sung Jinwoo was slowly destroying everything in sight. At this point, the Scavenger Guild has given up on participating in the fight and they're trying to get as far away as possible. After a brief stare down, Thomas springs into action to initiate round 3. As soon as he gets close enough to land an attack, Sung Jinwoo kicks him in the forehead, uses the force to push himself back to create some distance. Thomas immediately tries to use capture to pull Sung Jinwoo back in. This time, Sung Jinwoo activates Commander's authority. He uses it to pull himself back in to speed up the acceleration. Thomas thinks to himself, he's pulling himself towards me. Is he trying to take me head on? If that's the case, then I gladly accept, and he activates reinforcement. The two meet in the middle with a clash, blow for blow, punch for punch, but the force of the impact destroys Thomas's reinforced fist, sends him hurtling back down to the factory below. Jinwoo tracks where he landed and follows him to the bottom. Now visibly enraged, Thomas emerges from the rubble, swings at Sung Jinwoo, who dodges. The force of the swing alone was enough to destroy the building around him. Jinwoo launches himself at him, grabs him by the horns, and knees him in the face. For the first time, we see the reinforcement covering his eyes begin to shatter. Point of view switches to the FBH, who finally made it to the scene of the battle. Holy crap, the intensity of this mana is unbelievable. What kind of monsters are fighting right now? It's gonna be dangerous out there, so you better brace yourself. They say that different parts of the factory are being destroyed all around them with thunderous booms. The agents are completely gaffed at what they're witnessing. It's the first time anyone has ever seen Thomas Andre being bested. Agent says, "What do we do now, Mr. White?" He says, "We have to stop them, of course." Us? Stop them? Yes, we have to stop them. Sung Jinwoo is beating Thomas to a pulp. And then we're showing Jinwoo just doing him devious. He's not even fighting back at this point. He's just hammering him down. Getting his ass whooped, Thomas thinks to himself, how? How is a mage type hunter able to possess such power and speed? Am I gonna lose this fight? That's just not possible. Actually, I can't let that happen. He raises an arm to try to defend himself. Jinwoo bats it away and continues smashing at his skull. Thomas thinks to himself, my overwhelming force is what defines me. And then finally he stands to his feet saying, I am the great Thomas Andre. You think this is enough to defeat me? Jinwoo hits him in the back of the head with the elbow saying, look, I already told you. It doesn't matter who you are. Continues wailing away at him with the FBA just standing behind watching. Alan yells, Mr. Sung, that's enough, please stop. Jinwoo just keeps wailing away, punch after punch, blow after blow. Punching through Thomas's reinforcement and now is making skin-to-skin contact. Nothing can stop him at this point. He is a man possessed. Thomas is on the brink of losing consciousness when finally says, it's over, that's enough. Jinwoo pauses for a brief second. Thomas yields. He says, I lost. And time just stops for a second. Jinwoo stopped punching him. Thomas stopped responding. The FBH is just staring there. Can't believe he beat the great Thomas Andre. Wonder how many hunters out there can inflict that much damage on him. Actually, the real question is anyone capable of doing this? The entire world will go nuts once this news gets out. Adam finally springs into action and urges some healers to give him medical attention. The healer says all of his bones are broken and he's bleeding heavily. I can't do this by myself. We need to combine our efforts. A team of healers are trying to bring him back from the brink of death. Only able to hold out against the attacks because he's a national level hunter. If any other hunter had taken this much damage, they would have died at least 10 times over. One of the Scavenger Guild members reports that there aren't any casualties. Mr. Allen says, I guess we should be glad things aren't worse, but of course he spoke too soon. Suddenly, someone found Hwang Dong-soo unresponsive, unconscious, and not breathing. His heart had stopped. Sung Jinwoo was nowhere to be seen. One of you switches to Seoul, South Korea, and Sung Jinwoo is sitting on top of a building. He says, I switched places with Biru using Shadow Exchange. It's been a while since you've been in South Korea, right? What you're looking at is the city of Seoul. Right now, Biru should be in the States doing everything he can to heal Jinho. After a brief period of silence, the shadow next to him says, my king. Who says, what is it? He says, please bestow a name upon me as well. And then the system notification says, level 1 rank general. Who says, what about greed, since you died being greedy? What do you think? Do you like it? Hwang Dong-soo? And he replies, thank you, my king. Who says, good, now put your head back down. And of course, the shadow complies. Next day was the official first day of the International Guild Conference. See Jinwoo walking with Alan and Mr. Wu. Jinwoo says this place is packed with reporters, and Alan says it seems like they've already caught wind of yesterday's fight. It'd be hard for you to avoid the spotlight today. He thinks to himself, so he's the one that's responsible for what happened to the Scavengers Guild. Secure testimonies from the hunters who were there with Hwang Dong-soo. The Federal Bureau of Hunters will soon disclose the full findings of our investigation. Wu says, I don't want it to be about Hwang Dong-soo anymore. I came to the United States for only one reason, and I'll be done here as soon as I find out the answers I'm looking for. Alan says, I'll interpret the briefing for you, Mr. Sung. You'll be able to hear everything through these earpieces. Wu opens up the doors to the massive hall. Almost immediately, every single person in the room turned their attention to him. He was in a room with some of the strongest S-rank hunters and the most powerful people in the world. Of course, what does that mean to a man like Sung Jinwoo?